Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us this afternoon to talk about Sinc and product information management for the construction industry, and particularly for construction product manufacturers. I'm Rob Charlton, I'm Chief Exec of Space Group, and joining me is Adam Ward, who's the CTO of Space Group. We've both been heavily involved in the development of Sinc and are founders of PIM Store, which is the parent of Sinc itself, and it's where the thinking from Sinc and the reason for Sinc came about. Both Adam and myself are from the architectural profession. I'm an architect by profession, and Adam is an architectural technologist, so very much come from within the industry itself. So just to give a little bit of background about Space Group, just to give context, it's not supposed to be a sales pitch for Space Group, but more about the context of where Sinc and the importance of PIMs come from. So the business goes back to 1957. Space Architects started out in the northeast of England. Space Architects still very much alive and well now, and works on projects across the UK with a wide range of sectors, from retail to education, housing, but with a particular focus on innovation and technology. And it was from that commitment to digital design in the late 90s that PIM Technologies was formed, because we had a lot of feedback from clients who were really interested in the technology work we were doing. So in 2010, we set up a PIM consultancy, which is now based in London and works with a whole range of developers. We're working on the Google headquarters in King's Cross, a lot of university work. And then around a similar time, 2010, 2011, we realized that our designers and specifiers needed proprietary models to put into their overall models from manufacturers. So we set up PIM Store to create a link between manufacturers and specifiers. And again, we've now got millions of downloads and hundreds of manufacturers on there connecting with specifiers. And then what we realized was that we were creating these fantastic models from design right the way through to construction with lots of data, lots of accuracy, but they weren't being used into operation. So that's when we developed TwinView. TwinView was launched about 3 years ago. It's a digital twin platform to connect lots of information. So these digital models, data rich, then go into the platform, and we use it to manage the building and understand how the building operates. So that's the four businesses. It's all part of a life cycle of a building, right the way from early design right the way through to operation. And obviously Sinc sits in the middle of that, about managing the data that flows through all of that, and we'll pick up on that as we go through. So obviously the starting point is, what is product information management, or PIM, as it is known in the industry, or in many industries. And PIM, from a definition point of view, is the centralized process of efficient consolidation, enrichment, and distribution of product information. All sounds very sexy, but it is around connecting that data. There are PIM products, there are many of them out there, but Sinc has been specifically designed for the construction industry and product manufacturing and construction industry. Most manufacturers, whether it be creating widgets or clothing or whatever it is, will have some sort of PIM system, but this one's specifically for our own sector. So I thought I would have a trip down memory lane and reflect, when I was pulling this together, what was PIM when I started out in architecture 30 years ago. PIM, I suspect, I haven't looked back specifically, but certainly the term didn't exist. Some sort of it may have done. So I thought I did a bit of reflection on, this is where I am now, grey hair, balding. But if you take a look back 30 years, this was me 30 years ago, or 20 years ago maybe. And in my head, the only thing that's changed is the glasses. but people tell me I don't look like that anymore, which is a bit, I'm sure everyone suffers the same thing, that I still think I'm 20. But in that time, when I started out, in the late 90s, was when I started as an architect. We were using drawing boards, we were using rotring pens, and from a specification point of view, the specification was largely the lines that were drawn on the drawing, and we used stencils. And for example, specifying a toilet would be the armated shank stencil, and that's how the specification happened. So times were very different. There wasn't very much data around. We then moved on to CAD, and we've seen BIM develop over the past 25 years. But in those days, it was very much a line on a drawing. And an architect's library looked something like this. This isn't the one that we had in our practice, but it looked very, very similar. There was folders on the shelves which were kept up to date by usually it was the RIBA librarian would come in and update the documents. She would turn up with a box of inserts, and she would go through all of the files on the shelves and update them and put the new information in. But obviously the problem there is keeping it up to date, and also making sure there's no rogue copies floating around the office. And you can see on the right hand side there, under someone's desk, there are their own versions of documents. So keeping information was up to date was really, really difficult. And the specifications and the information of choice was the white book in our office was the place to go for all your plasterboard details. And then also I was working in healthcare at the time, so the Armored Shanks Blue Book was very popular when we were doing specification. So a very, very different time. And then the other side of it was to speak to a technical department. You would pick up a telephone. That's a telephone. If there's a lot of young people don't even know what a telephone is these days, and certainly doesn't look like that. But we would pick up the telephone and you would speak to the technical department, or the pilot case on the right hand side. We had relationships with reps, and we would speak to certain reps. They would come and knock on the door of the practice and show their latest product that they had. Obviously, times are very different now. Everything's online. We have Teams calls. It's difficult now to build relationships with reps because there aren't as many of them out there, but also people don't work from the office. So all of that connection is very different. So the world has moved on since I was on the drawing board, as it were. And then specifications, my specifications back in the early days, obviously NBS, but it was a paper document. We filled in blank pages, and then we would even take them down to the typing pool at NBS's offices on Newcastle Quayside, and they would type up our spec. And then last but not least was the BBA certificate, which usually sat in the back of the folder. And as a young architect, as long as I could see a certificate there that was BBA inspected, I was happy that was a compliant product. I probably didn't even know what BBA was or stood for, but the fact there was that certificate in the back made me feel that that was an approved product and it had been tested. And obviously we find out many years later that isn't necessarily the case. So whenever we develop anything, I sort of touched on this earlier, is that we're looking to address challenges. We don't see ourselves as a technology business. We see ourselves as a business that works in the built environment and identifies problems and then finds ways to address them, to innovate, to address those problems. And often the solution is technology. So the challenge that we're trying to address with PIM is just information overload. We all have multiple locations of data. When we've been talking to our product information, our product manufacturers within BIM Store, we found that they're finding it really difficult to keep information up to date because they've got it in lots of different areas, whether that be on the website or marketing material or the BIM components. Trying to keep all of those up to date at the same time is a real challenge. And then, so why is this so important now? What's changed? What's put this challenge at the forefront of everyone's minds? And obviously, we all know it's the Grenfell disaster in 2017, where 72 people unfortunately lost their lives. And a big part of that has been, obviously, the finger's been pointed at the industry, and a big part of that, again, is down to some deficiencies in the product certification and specification aspect. So it is really in the firing line now. And certainly, as an architect with my principal designer building regs hat on, it is incredibly important now that we get that data right, because ultimately the principal designer is responsible for compliance with all regulations if built. So it is making a lot of specifiers, designers, look hard at the information that they are using on their projects. So what came out of that in 2022? Some new legislation came out, the Building Safety Act, which I'm sure everyone knows about, and has really changed a lot of things in the industry, and made everything that maybe didn't happen on Grenfell or hasn't been happening in the industry is now law, and must be done. And if not, there are custodial or financial penalties. So looking at all the parties, obviously since Grenfell, there's been a lot of talk about products, and things have changed. Ultimately, the responsibility sits within the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities. And then within that, the whole product safety requirements sit within the Office of Product Safety and Standards. So that's where all this responsibility stands. Clearly, that hasn't been fit for purpose. And after Grenfell, this has all become very clear that there's a big gap about who is responsible for product specification, product testing. And I put this in. This is Sarah Jones, and the question is, does anybody know who Sarah Jones is? And I suspect the answer is probably nobody on this call. Maybe a family do, or the people she works with. Anyway, Sarah Jones is an MP, and she is the current minister responsible for construction. We can't give her too much responsibility for what's happened in the past, because she hasn't been in post very long, because she's joined with a new government. But the reason for showing this is that the whole construction sector has had very little attention by government, even though 72 people lost their lives and it's become a national scandal. From a government point of view, there isn't much focus. And in the 5 years before the Labour government, there was 9 construction ministers in that period. Obviously, there was a lot of change of leadership in the Conservative government, but that's the kind of numbers you're looking at a year generally for a minister to hold that post. Other things that have happened around this over the last few years, there's been a lot going on in product testing and product data. In April 23, Paul Morell issued this report, Testing for a Safer Future. It's a really detailed and quite a heavy report. It's not the sort of thing you would take on holiday. The upshot is that it goes through a lot of detail on how flawed our current testing regime is. And sort of, I guess, identifying areas of how that might be improved and how that might be changed. Other key players in this, just to pick these out, Construction Products Association is the trade association for this area. And then what came out of the group through CPA and various other organisations was a CCPI, and this was an attempt for the industry themselves to be self-policing. And I think obviously it's a good start, but I suspect going forward things will need to be a bit more robust than that. So yeah, key thing that's driving a lot of this now is the inquiry outcome. The inquiry obviously dived into a lot of the detail about this, and I certainly haven't read it all, but I've read quite a few parts of this, and my takeaways would be the level of detail is incredible. The inquiry team have gone into a huge amount of detail, and when you've read it, you'll understand why it took so long to come out. They've left no stone unturned. It is quite damning, well, very damning of the industry and certain parts of the industry, but not just the industry, clients, or the contractors. Everybody was in the firing line, and they delved into the detail of all of that. But what I've done is I've picked out some key points. So this is an extract, a tiny extract from the executive summary. I'm not anticipating that anybody would ever read this. I've put it up as a point to say that there is a lot of detail in there. But what I have done is picked out a few key points in that document that will be relevant to product manufacturers. So the key one is that the recommendation from the inquiry is that there will be a construction regulator reporting to the Secretary of State. So that's a big step forward, that there will be someone sitting at the top, and that regulator will be responsible for the regulation of construction products, the testing and certification of products, and the issuing of those certificates, rather than leaving it to the industry themselves. Now, obviously, this is not legislation yet, and none of this is in place, but typically when an inquiry comes up with recommendations, politicians have to sit up and take note, and time will tell if that regulator is appointed. The government hasn't responded to the inquiry yet. Obviously, it's very early days, but I would suspect something like this is coming down the line. And then the actual specifics on certification, same again, not expecting anyone to read it, but key points that come out of that, in particular the context of what we're talking about today, is it is essential that those responsible for designing buildings have access to reliable information about the material and products. And you would think that's goes as a standard, but clearly that wasn't the case in Grenfell. The next point to raise is that the national regulator of construction products that is in place at the moment isn't fit for purpose. So this is the suggestion of the inquiry is what sits at the moment. The appointment of the national regulator doesn't go far enough. And then picking out a few particular areas in relation to the recommendations is manufacturers will be required by law to provide on request copies of all test results that support claims about fire performance. So the accuracy of that information is essential, and being able to put your hands on it quickly and that it's up to date will be imperative. So this is demonstrating the importance of accurate data, and those that manage data within manufacturer organisations just know that it's a huge challenge as it stands at the moment. And this is the fundamental is that organisations have huge amounts of information, and typically it's disjointed in itself, but also within the organisations it's disjointed. Often you have the marketing team, you have the technical team, all have responsibility for different information. So you've got the website to keep up to date, the brochures, but also you've got data sheets, you've got PIM components, you've got specification. You then have to tie into wider business systems such as SAP or the ERP system. So huge amounts of information across a business, and it's all very disjointed. But what a PIM is designed to do is bring that information into a single environment to allow you to put that information in once, and it automatically updates everything. So if you change a specification, a number in PIM, it updates that number in all the areas where it is seen. So that's the simple approach to what a PIM is, and that's the power of it. That update it once, it updates across all of your platforms and makes that exercise far simpler, but gives you that comfort that everything is accurate and up to date. So that's the overview. What I'll do now is pass over to Adam, who will give you what all of that means in practice and how Sinc addresses that challenge. So with that, I shall pass over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Rob. So I'm now going to jump into a live demo of Sinc. and hopefully show some of the ways Sinc addresses some of the issues Rob's mentioned. So Sinc is a cloud application. You just need to access it through a browser. It's got various APIs so you can interact with it to get data out of it into your systems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into Sinc here. What I'm going to do is just log in. And log in. Oh, not good start. 1 second. There we go. Now I'm going to change my manufacturer here. So I'm going to go down to manufacturers. I'm just going to change this to probably Crane. So this is a demo manufacturer, not real data. So don't focus on the data too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump straight down into products on the menu on the left here, and then we'll work our way through the system from here. So I'm going to go to products and essentially, sorry, let me change to grow. And go to products. So yeah, you can see we've got one product on here, and that product's got two product owners, myself and Ryan. So this is a tool which is designed for product manufacturers to use to keep the data up to date, maintain the data, but then also be able to distribute that data across various systems, services, websites, etc. But also keep that level of control about who's allowed to change data, etc. So we can see this product here. You can see it's got 5 SKUs. So I'm going to go into the different SKUs. A SKU is like a different version of that product because there might be different colors, different sizes, etc. Again, I'm sure people on the call understand SKUs, but the way I describe it to people is iPhone 14. iPhone 14, you got different memory sizes, different colors. iPhone 14 is the product. You got all your different SKUs underneath here. So we can see we've got the chrome one, the brass one. So I'm going to go into this chrome one here. And you'll see the 17 parameters in here. And what we're taken to is the product page for this particular SKU. So we have a bit of information on the left. We're on revision 10. This one's live. We get all the product data down the right. And this data can be public data, but it can be also your internal data. You might have data in here from the manufacturing process or what you buy parts for in here. It's your business data. Then what you can do here is you can split this data down into whatever you want. In this case, we've got PIM and website. If we go into website, it shows me all the data which I've said is available on the website or the subset of data. Again, same with BIM objects, the data which is shared with the BIM objects. Down here, what we have is data sheets. So again, you can link assets, images, BIM objects, videos, case studies, PDFs, and you can associate these with a SKU. And again, we've got a master library here where you can upload all your assets, your documents, your videos, your images. And then what you can do in here is you can go and then say like, that document's associated to this SKU, for example. What I'm going to do now is let's say we need to change some data on here. So we're going to change some data and we're going to add some data. So first of all, let's go down and see on here, we've got a life expectancy 15 years. Let's go and edit this now. So I'm going to go and click create draft, and you'll see this pushes this to revision 11 and it's now in draft status. And what I can do is go to 15 years and I can change this to, let's go 30 years. So I've instantly changed that now to 30 years, and you can see that's now in draft. And this is quite important. When we make a change on here, we don't want that just to be published everywhere instantly. We want to make changes, multiple changes. It might take a couple of weeks, different people involved. And then when we publish it, get for approval, it then goes live. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a parameter. So I'm going to add a parameter in here. And I'm going to add a new bit of data to this product called Adam's length. And what I'm going to do is say this is a number. So we've got the concept of data type. So obviously you can upload documents. You can link other assets to this. So if you have like a configurer, you can kind of do that. But this is just a very simple number because it's a length. And then where do I want this parameter to appear? I want it to appear on the website, and I want it to appear in my BIM property set there. So I'm going to share it with the website with BIM. Click next. And now, because we've picked a number saying, is there a minimum? Is there a maximum? Is it? And here I'm going to put millimeters because it's a length. And then here I'm just going to put 20,000 and click save. So down here now, we've got Adam's length 20,000. You can see that's now in draft. So let's add a few more parameters. So another type of parameter I can add on here is what we call a calculated parameter. So what I can do is go to expression, and I can call this weight per millimeter. And I'm going to go expression. I'm going to say this bit of data is going to be shared with the website or shared in the BIM. And now instead of just typing in a value, we can actually calculate the value. So what I'll do is go Adam's length. And then what we can do is we can do mathematical formulas in here. So let's say, let's divide Adam's length by the weight. And it's given us 200. And if I wanted to be really, what I could do is go and put in here, I could go and kind of populate this out if I want to. And there's an error in my expression. And I've crashed it, shouldn't have done that. I don't know where that's gone. So we can create calculated values there. So what that would mean is, I'm gonna have to log back out and log back in. Sorry about that. Live demo now. Oh, my whole keyboard stopped working. So it's not Sinc. 1 second. Luckily, I've got a. This is going to be quite a short demo if this doesn't work, because I can't type on my keyboard. Okay. So let me go back into products, which I've got to kind of double click on. Go back in here. And yeah, so what we'll see in here, I can go and add parameters. The other type of parameter I can add into here is what we call shared parameters. My keyboard's not working. And what these are, let's say you want to add that's better. Had a pop-up bar, that's better. Had a pop-up on my screen. So we're back in action now. So yeah, so let's say obviously we can add parameters on here. Let's quickly go and do what I did. So let's go Adam's weight per millimeter. We'll say this is going to be an expression, and it's going to be shared with the website and with the BIM. And in here, I'm going to take an existing parameter we have, which is Adam's length, and we're going to divide that by the weight, which is an existing parameter we already have. And you'll see it's calculating 200 there. So if I now click save, we've got weight per millimeter 200. And what's really powerful about this is if one of those, if this weight changes or if Adam's length parameter changes here, that changes automatically. So what we've done is we've added that parameter and we've added another 2 parameters down here. What I'm going to do, I'm happy with that. I'm now going to click send for approval. And you'll see it's now went for approval, needs approval. So we've got this approval mechanism. So anybody can make changes, but only the product managers can approve it. So if I go back to updates, you'll see we've got this product, 3 parameters are being updated by Ryan and myself, and click review. And what we can see in here is this is an updated parameter. It's changed from this to this. Then also these are 2 new parameters. So I can just actually, I'm happy with all that and click approve. And that's now being updated. So if I now went back to that particular SKU, we now on revision 11, and this is now live. So that's live across our portfolio. What Sinc also does is keep a history. So if I click on the little revision here, it keeps a full history of every single SKU and when it was changed. If I wanted to go back to version 14 here, we can go and view it, and we get a little message up here saying, hey, you viewed it in revision 3, this isn't the latest information. And we can always jump back to the latest one there. The other couple of things before we move on to the distribution, which is the important bit, is obviously if you have 20,000 SKUs, you're going to have data which is constant between them all, such as your telephone number, your website. So as well as being able to add parameters in here, you can also add what we call a shared parameter here. So essentially you can have a library, a company library of all standard, like your telephone number, your website, your email address. And what you can do is you can push that data into your BIM objects by adding a shared parameter. So what that means is if your telephone number changes or your email address changes, you don't have to go into every single product and update it. You can just update the master shared parameter here and it'll update everywhere across all your assets. Still goes through the approval, but very quickly to do it. We've also got this concept of data templates. So what you can do here is you can build a template for your products. Let's say you've got a valve or you make showers. You can create a template of all the data you need for that. And when you roll out a product, you can use that template. You can also set required and validation about what data should be in there and what format it should be in. So if somebody tries to put the wrong data in, it'll not be validated. To show you what I mean by that, if I go back to updates here, go to a different manufacturer, go to this one. So if I go back to updates here, you'll see, as well as getting the products that need approval, where the data's changed down here, these products need attention. So what we can see here, there's 18 parameters out of date on this one. So if I go and have a look here, what we can see needs attention. So what it's saying here is actually, in the template, you said we should have a certificate in there, but we don't have a certificate. So it's now saying, hey, go and provide that certificate. So it's letting you know where your data is lacking information or where your product is inconsistent. So it's flagging up those inconsistencies as well. As I mentioned before, a product in a SKU can have, well, it's not just about the data, it's also about what we call the assets. So the data sheets, the documents, the videos, the images, and all these can be shared with third parties as well. So what you can do is you can associate these data sheets, these documents, these images with the product. And again, that's available through the APIs. If I now go to Asset Library, this is where you would upload all those documents and it's like a central repository. And then what you can do is you assign these documents to your assets, to your SKUs. Cool. So let me quickly go down to activity feed and then we'll move on to distribution. So what's super important is, as people are making changes, people in your organization are adding data, changing data, updating data, deleting data, you need to keep a record of who did what. So what you'll see in here, Adam Ward logged into Sinc, Adam Ward logged into Sinc, Adam Ward logged into Sinc. Did a lot of login to Sincs. I've probably got a filter on. Let me just go and search there. I'll tell you what it is. I'm on the wrong manufacturer. Let's go. Sorry, really. There we go. Then we go into this manufacturer, activity feed. There we go. Adam Ward is logged in a Sinc. Adam, which I've just did 2 seconds ago. Adam Ward has updated this SKU. Adam Ward has updated the weight to millimeters from this to 200. Adam Ward has did this. So you can see everything I've done in this demo is now logged on this kind of timeline thread of who did what. If I wanted to see what Ryan, one of my colleagues, had done, we can just search for Ryan and we can see what Ryan's actually been up to on here as well. Or if I wanted to see all the activity, so if I know some data was changed on a particular product in September, we can filter by data. We can see all the changes which happened in September as well. So, and again, you can export this to CSV if you want to. So this is your golden thread, who did what, where, and when. It's your audit log. This is great. So this is a platform where you can maintain your product data, maintain the images and assets related to your products. But then the big question is, how do you share this with your website? How do you share this with your BIM objects? How do you integrate this into your internal systems? So down here, what we have is what we call our app library. And over time, we're going to expand this out. So you'll see on here, we've got our API here, and we've got our embed and our BIM store. So I'm going to go into the API. So an API is an application programming interface, and it's designed to integrate your data on your products and your SKUs into whatever you want. It could be your website, it could be an internal system. So if I click on view here, you can see we can generate a key. So we'll just call this the German website. Let's say you want to create some data for your German website. You can then pick what data you want to share through this API, because you're going to have lots of sensitive information in here on your products. So that's the reason for those data property sets. You can define, hey, I just want to share the website data with the German website. It's now going to create a key. You can copy that key, share it with your web developer, and we've got a full REST API, which allows you to access your products data, your SKU data, your manufacturer's data, your company data, and also log in through our API as well in case you wanted to update data. This might not mean much if you're non-technical, but this is what's called a REST API. And this is if you give this to your web developers and say, hey, put my product data on the website, they can use this to do that relatively easily. Or on whatever platform you want. The other integration we've got is what we call an embed. Now, you might just quickly want to embed your product data onto a web page. You don't want to get developers involved. You don't want to use APIs. You might use WordPress for your website. You might use another like a CMS system to do it. So this allows you to do that really easily. So what I'm going to do, I don't have a manufacturer's website, but I'm going to go to BIM store and I'm going to create a page on here. So I'm just going to create a random page. You can ignore this bit for the moment. And I'm going to create a new page called a cool new product. And I'm just going to put some text in here. I'm just going to put some random text. This is a cool new product. Obviously, pretend this is your website. I'm sure you've got a CMS where you can add images, you can add text, you can update stuff. I'm just going to click preview on here. And what we'll see is that's created a very simple page with this is a test product. Now let's pretend this is a product page on your website and you want to put your data for a product on this page. Now you could just type all that in, same as I've just done. But then you've got to maintain it in two places. So what you can do with Sinc here is if we go to embeds, I'm going to go new embed and I'm going to go Adams BIM store embed. That's the website I'm embedding it onto. I'll just pick iframe. I'll pick what data I want to share, website and the BIM data. Which SKU do I want to get the data? So I'll say I want this mixer revision 11 and I want to use the latest data. So you can actually lock this down to version 11. So again, that data wouldn't change. Or you can say actually keep it up to date. So if the data changes in Sinc, it updates on this as well. So I'm going to click save. We've now got Adams BIM store embed. I'm just going to click copy. And what I'm now going to do is go and paste that into here. So I'm going to go back into my CMS, which I thought I had open, but I mustn't have. Cool. Oh, well, sorry, campaign pages. Let me just go and create a new page again. So what I'm going to do here is do exactly as I did before, but I'm going to put a cool new product. And in here, I'm just going to put, here is our product data. And you can put images and stuff in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to source and I'm just going to paste that line of code, which we've just got from Sinc into there. And now if we preview that page, what we'll see is, if I save that page, sorry about this. Let me just click all regions and then click preview page. Yeah, so we'll now see we've embedded that product data into that web page. Really easy to do, really quick, and it's responsive. So again, you kind of see how it's responsive with the site as well. You can do other changes. So in Sinc, you can say, well, Adam's here. Let's say I want to use an HTML instead of an iframe. This is just a more modern way of doing it. What this will do, if I now go and refresh this, you'll see it's now pulling the fonts, the style, the colors from the website it's embedded into. So really, this is as easy as embedding a YouTube video into a web page. You can embed your product data into your web page. But the really cool thing is, if you update it in Sinc, it'll update on here automatically. So it's a nice way just to very quickly embed your data into a web page. Of course, for complex integrations, you would use the API. The last one is BIM store. If you're a BIM store customer, your BIM objects are loaded with data, and that data can be updated dynamically through Sinc as well. So again, if you update the data in Sinc, it will update on BIM store automatically as well. A few other little things in here. We do have a dashboard. So what happens is we can tell you, get how many products, how many SKUs, how many parameters, your most updated SKUs, so which products are getting updated the most. Then we also tell you kind of how many downloads, asset downloads, and how many API calls. So as well as putting the data on your website, you could embed an image in there from Sinc. And if somebody downloads an image of product data sheet, it will say, hey, that product data sheet's been downloaded 20 times. So it's keeping that central repository of kind of how many times someone's looked at or downloaded data through Sinc or third party. If you've got multiple brands, multiple companies, you can load them all into Sinc. So again, you don't need to have a different instance of Sinc for each company. You might have data which is shared across your companies. You can handle that, no problem. Yeah, so I think that's about it. The only thing I would say is Sinc's designed to be easy to use, really simple compared to other PIM systems where they take months to set up. It's designed to be, you can get up and running, create your templates, set your products up and start using it quite quickly and integrating it into things quite quickly. Yeah, so I don't know if there's any questions or any information on that, but I think that's probably enough of a demo. Sorry about the glitch in the middle. I had a pop-up on my other screen, which I had to click on to make my keyboard work. But yeah, hopefully that was useful.
I think you did well, Adam. I was panicking that you're going to have to hand over to me and I was going to have to do a demo.
No,
You did well.
I was wondering why is it not working? But anyway, it was pop-up on the other screen. Cool. Hand back over to Paul.
Thanks for that, Adam. Yeah, very well done under the circumstances. That was these challenges are sent to test you. We've had quite a few questions actually, so I'll go into them. What I will say is just one eye on the time. If we don't get through them, we'll certainly provide the responses back when we send out the recordings just after this. So jumping in, this is, I think, probably one for you, Adam. So where is the data in Sinc saved? And there is a second part to the question, which is what security measures do you have in place? Okay. How is data encryption handled, etc.?
Okay, so Sinc is a cloud-based software as a service. It's all hosted on the cloud. Our cloud provider of choice is AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is one of the biggest. When it comes to data security, the first thing is we follow all industry standards. So data at rest and in transit is encrypted, 256-bit encryption, TLS encrypted. So data safe in transit and at rest when it's on hard disks. Second thing is the way we store and handle the data is in what we call buckets. So essentially, we don't have a multi-tenancy where all the different manufacturers' data is in the same database. We have a separate bucket where the data is segregated for additional security. Yeah, and obviously because we host it on AWS, you get all the benefits of that because AWS is what's called the AAA class data center, like security 24 hours a day, fire protection, etc., etc. So your data is safe. It's got redundancy built in, so it's probably safer on there than it is actually sitting on a local server in your office premise. Yeah, so that's how we do it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thanks, Adam. Another one, I think, probably for yourself. When you showed the activity log as you were going through your demo, can that be edited at all, even by an admin?
No. So that log's a single source of truth, and we've intentionally made it so that you cannot edit it. So if you make a mistake and you add a bit of data to a product, that mistake needs to be logged. Yes, you'll go and change it and fix it, but that whole process will be logged in the audit log. So the answer is no. Even an admin cannot change the audit log because you need that single source of truth. Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Next one, it's a little bit of a longer question. First of all, great looking UI. Is it possible to connect the system to another source of data to build a consistent set of properties that describe the product, i.e. data dictionaries, eTIM, etc.?
Yeah, so good question. So yes, the answer is yes, you can. So we've got what we call ingestion parameters. So the same way you can create a parameter in TwinView or a data template, those parameters could be powered by a third-party system. So let's say you keep your price in a pricing database on an existing system you have. We could pull that in to Sinc, and essentially it's kept in Sinc. So if you update the price in that system, it updates in Sinc and vice versa. What's really powerful is you can do the same for your product templates. So again, if you've got, like you said, if you are doing like your data dictionaries, etc., you could create one for your template, and then what you could do is keep that in Sinc if you wanted to. So yes, we've got what we call dynamic properties where you keep them in Sinc, ingestion in or pushing them out. Yeah.
Great.
But the perfect.
Apologies if there is a bit of a delay with this. Yeah, there's a slight lag on my end, so apologies to anyone who's listening if there's a delay. Rob, there's a question that came through that was for yourself. You mentioned that connecting information in one of your sort of later slides there in the presentation you gave, and it mentioned BIM. So the question is, does that mean that you are working with other BIM companies?
Yeah, we're totally, from that point of view, agnostic. What Sinc's about is connecting that information. So any platform, to be honest, we're not going to, we have, we know that platforms that have BIM libraries, yeah, absolutely, we bring them in. So, yeah, we have no problem with that. And any platform that has an API, we are happy to connect into Sinc.
Okay. All right, great stuff. And what is the typical timeline for implementing Sinc? Do you offer support or a hand-holding service?
Yeah, so I can answer that one. So yes, we do. So although Sinc's designed to be self-usable, you can kind of log on, create your products if you know what you're doing and set it up. We do have an implementation team who can do that for you. So instead of they can get your existing data, help structure it, put that into Sinc on bulk, and then train you up on how to use the system. And it depends on what level of support you need. Everything from you don't need any, just want the software, all the way up through to, hey, we just want you to give us a platform with all our data preloaded on it. So yes, we do.
So there's a couple more questions. I think we're going to have time to get through all of them. So the next one is, how user-friendly is the platform for non-technical users? We have marketing, sales, and product teams who would likely to be using such a platform.
Yeah, I think it's a hard one to say because without knowing, but I mean, managing data on a big business with lots of different things is a complex thing. It's kind of just by its nature. But if you think of it, nothing more as kind of a really clever database. If you can put data in, that the hard bit isn't using the interface and using the software. The hard bit's agreeing yourself as a company how you want your data structured so it works across your business. And then hopefully Sinc will handle anything you can chuck at it. But the interface is designed intentionally to be really simple, easy to use. You get lots of other platforms like the SAPs of these worlds, your Oracles, where you need a whole implementation team just to manage them and maintain them 24 hours a day. And you never really fully implemented, and you're constantly being updated and tweaked. So we've designed Sinc to be the complete opposite to that. Be really easy to use, get up and running, cloud-based. Yeah, so hopefully really easy. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay, excellent. And just the final question. So I appreciate, what are the plans for your roadmap over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Do you want me to answer? Do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, it's one for you, Adam. Yeah, I think.
So I mean, we've launched Sinc now, and the idea is we want our customers' feedback. So our development's all done in-house, and we keen for people to use it and feedback what new features they want. So that's number one. We want feedback, and we want to develop the platform together. The second one is we do have some longer term goals. So there's something called the PLM system, Product Lifecycle Management. So if you think of a PIM system as a system which is used to manage a manufacturer's product data, a PLM system kind of handles the end of that life. So once it's sold to a customer, how it's maintained, how it's managed, how it's installed. Think of a car. You buy a car, but when you buy that car, you get it serviced. Its service gets logged on a computer. The main dealer knows everything you've got done to that car. That's a PLM system. So again, if you're a curtain wall manufacturer, you'll be able to say when it got delivered to site, the serial numbers of that, what drawings were issued to the subcontractor, when it was installed, who signed it off, etc., all the way through to decommissioning. So we have got the designs, and it's actually designed up, ready to go. But what we're doing is we're waiting to see what the feedback is on phase one, as we call it, before we kind of push too far ahead with what we want to see what our customers think before we just go and build something, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Rob. That's the end of the questions here. So I'll hand back over to you just to wrap up.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Paul. I think the final thing to say, and I think Adam's already mentioned it. Sinc's a brand new product. We're keen to get feedback from users. So keen to have ongoing conversations, get in touch, happy to support, to have an initial look at the platform, give you a more detailed demo, even trial some of your products if that would be helpful. So keen to work with you going forward. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll speak again soon. Or if you want to contact either Adam or myself or Paul, please do so.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye.
Bye.